Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Grim Reader. I'm Kathy Grimm, The Grim Reader, and today I'm going to talk to you about my top reads of 2023 part 1, 20 through 11. And so not the top 10 yet, but the top 20 through 11. And it's not a very diverse list in the sense that it's very British centric for reasons that will become apparent, but you know, I just go where the books take me. Let's get started, and I'll just sort of say whatever comes to my mind about these books, what I remember about them. And the first one, coming in at number 20 out of the 41 books that I read, is Can You Forgive Her? The first volume of the Palliser series by Anthony Trollope. And all of these Trollops that will show up I mainly listened to. I think the audio person is Timothy West, and he embodies Trollope for me in a way that other readers don't. And so yeah, so this comes in at number 20, written in 1865, but not really published as I didn't do a lot of research, but this one didn't get published the way he wanted and even with the title there were some issues. But anyway, it is considered the first Palliser novel. So the series of Palliser novels, they're named after one of the people in the series, and it's a universe of people, kind of like the Barsetshire novels, except it takes place in London. So Barsetshire is cottagecore Trollope, and Palliser series is urban, a little bit more wonky, politics, not exactly male-centric because the women are so really important in Trollope. That's part of why I love him. But still, it's just a different vibe, and I think his writing changes a little bit. And so this is a story of these different narratives, and they're all kind of connected to women trying to decide whom to marry. Specifically, one woman, Alice is her name, and I had true sympathy for her. So one thing that I'm not sure how I feel about is that sometimes Trollope defines the most important characters. He leaves them a little bit blank or bland, and I think I don't know if it's a tactic, and he did that with Alice. We never really got her full-on perspective, I thought, and I would have been interested in it. And one thing that I think not many people seem to hone in on is how she's kind of like not exactly mistreated by her father, but neglected. Like there's an emotional coldness between the two that I always felt sorry for her. She's sitting there in this he describes the house as being ugly, and she's nice to her father and well behaved, but there's not a lot of, and I think it's connected to maybe the fact that he's a widow or the mother. I don't know exactly, but there's psychological stuff going on there that's not really examined in the novel. Anyway, she's in between two lovers, and one of them is Gray as his name in the beginning, and the other one is her cousin. Yes, it's another one of those cousin marriages. So let me just, for time reasons, get to the gist of it all. One thing that he does in this one and in the next ones that I am a little bit unsure about is he'll present a character in a certain light, positive or at least neutral, and then it's sort of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The negative sides of this character, these are usually men, come out, like because of stuff that happens to them. And it's a little bit like, I feel a little bit manipulated by that sometimes. It's like you think one person's going to be, and in this case it's the cousin, is going to be positive. And I never remember that happening in Barsetshire the same way. The people were like the way they were all the way through. And it was still interesting. So it's something that he does. It does kind of make it perhaps a little bit more page-turnery. I don't know. The Palliser series is really interesting. And I'm just sort of at the beginning, I haven't really completely, since I'm still reading, I'm reading the second to last one right now, reading as in listening. So that's coming in at number 20. A good read. These are all good reads. I'm very generous with their stars. These are all 5 stars. But they're still 20 to 11. The next one is another British novel that I read early in the year, so I don't remember it that well. 1939 novel by Dorothy Whipple, The Priory. Basically another family saga, like a weird family, and it was sisters in this case, maybe even twins. Yeah, I think they were twins. and their kind of lives are presented to us in a certain way. And it's just making me think that there's a bit of a theme of sisters in my reading of this last year, and how their lives develop, how they kind of, one of them does eventually fall in love. Anyway, it's a sort of a life novel, but the house that they live in, the Priory, does also play an important part in the novel, which I did like. I like it when houses are characters in novels. And the father, as I recall, was very strange. There was also kind of like, these novels do kind of hone in on a coldness in British family life, sometimes rigidity, inability to be honest about your emotions, about things. Really strong writing. It's rather long though, so it maybe dragged a tiny bit towards, but it was still a very good novel, and I like Whipple. This was my second Whipple, or my second. I think it's on my second. The first one was Someone at a Distance, which I think I liked even more because it had this really good negative character, as I recall. But The Priory is definitely worth your time if you're interested in British family stuff, female-centric from the 30s. And it's, of course, one of these beautiful Persephone editions with the beautiful end papers. Another British novel, what do you know? Written by a woman, Olivia Manning. My first Manning comes in at number 18, The Doves of Venus. This is really kind of interesting. So it's a young woman, and I really was sort of drawn to Ellie. I think I love it. So one of the criticisms I was reading about Ellie is that she's sort of like not as talented as she thinks. She's a normal person. She's basic, but she's still sympathetic, and she's still kind of, we sympathize with the fact that she wants to get away from her kind of annoying mother, her boring life. There's something about British society. There is a kind of extremely boring or mundane aspect to it, like the constraints of it all, and especially if you have financial constraints. And she's with her mother in the seaside town. They don't get along, and she's an annoying sister, and she's someone who wants something better, but she's so young. She's 18, and so she doesn't get any help from anyone. And so to sort of critique her for not being as talented as, or she's not, a genius, and she's just Ellie, and I liked her a lot. And I think it's quite a successful example of a female Bildungsroman. She falls for some stupid older man who plays along with her because she's pretty and young, and she sort of comes out of it, as I recall. To be honest, I don't recall exactly, but she awakens to what's going on. And I thought the writing was really strong, and also just kind of the depictions of other people in the novel, these other interactions that she has with other people, young men. And it was a really strong read. Maybe, it's only coming in at 18, but I liked it a lot, and I definitely want to go back and read more Manning. And this is another one of these series that I'm kind of interested in collecting a little bit, the Virago Modern Classics. And I do love this cover, even though to me this evokes the 60s and not the, this was published in 55, but it's okay. It's still a lovely cover, and I would highly I recommend this. I mean, I think it's a really good read it's a kind of depressing because, she's 18 and she's in the big city and she struggles financially. She gets a job. It's all about sort of the day-to-day struggles of an 18-year-old trying to make her way. And she's sort of interested in art, but she has no education or not much education about it. So, and what's she supposed to do? It's all about, she doesn't have the cultural capital that you need, and no one's really giving it to her. They're all just using her because of, her being young. So I recommend this. Moving on to number 17, written in 1922, published in 1922 for the first time, but written over a time period 1906 to 1921. Oh my gosh, so much British stuff in my top reads of the year, whatever. The Forsyte Saga, which I also mainly listened to. So this is really kind of the story of a family, a big family, and it's long, and there are passages or sections that you just are more drawn to than others. And what do I remember of this? One thing I do remember is how I think he's really good at depicting people dying, like death, like in this sort of realistic and wistful way, and people's reactions to people dying. And it's not entirely negative. It's almost like death positive, I would say. And the family is annoying because there's an autofiction element here too. It's very listenable. I listened to this. The reader actually wasn't that great though. It was definitely not Timothy West great. But all in all, an immersive listen. and recommended if you like. It's so comes out, it published in 1922, and he got the Nobel Prize for it. I do think it's less of a perfect work than Thomas Mann Buddenbrooks, which I would have to reread to confirm, but I love Mann. I think Mann is just an even better writer than Galsworthy, and it's as if Buddenbrooks was Mann's beginning, and this is his the end, or the best thing this guy wrote, or the most famous thing he wrote. Yeah, sorry, I don't have that much to say about it, but definitely worth your time, and I'm glad I listened to it. Let's see. Getting into the trollops again, I'm putting them in this order. So at the lowest was the Can You Forgive Her? And then coming in for me in terms of my reading for the year, at number 16 is Phineas Finn, which I really did like. So this is the second in the Palace novels, honing in on this Irish fellow and his kind of trying to make his way in British politics and in Britain. And I like Phineas Finn a lot, even with him, he's kept a little bit bland and unassuming and friendly. He's good looking. The ladies like him. Okay, sure, fine. We'll take that from Trollope. And he's really likable, but sometimes there's a passivity, or there's something about Phineas that and it sort of works for what Trollope's trying to do. And yes, so I really like this one. I liked the whole plot. I like the other people. This is, as I said, you're dealing with politicians and women and sort of upper society, and Phineas is sort of trying to make his way into this world. And I like the fact that you can tell he really wants to just be in England because it's more exciting than Ireland, and he's a little bit sort of, he's ambitious because of he kind of just wants the good life, but he's not that superficial. He just manages not to be completely superficial, because he's quite a deep thinker to a certain extent. But it's really quite well done. Has a kind of Bildungsroman quality to it that I did enjoy. So I put that at number 16. And then this one, I put at number 15. So this is the Eustace Diamonds. This is considered, I think, number 3 in the Palliser, but it's sort of like different because it hones in on, it's sort of like a little sideshow story. And what's interesting about Eustace Diamonds is that it hones in on a woman character who's mainly negative and manipulative, but also fascinating. Lizzie Eustace, young, beautiful, and widowed, and kind of like she's shockingly has no scruples or morals, and is all about and it's as if what's interesting, what Trollope does quite well with her is you sort of see how it's like there's a moralistic quality to the fact that because she is the way she is, she's so conniving, manipulative, and all about her own needs and wants, that she doesn't know how to create a joyful life for herself. She's rather unhappy, because she's always going to be unhappy, because she's just that type of person. She's ungrateful, she's greedy, she's self-serving, and it's almost like, see, if you are like that, you're never going to be happy. So so there. And it's interesting that to have such a sort of negative character be at the center of a long novel. And it all hones in on the diamonds here, and it's really quite a very quick read, and quite enjoyable. But I'm putting it in before the next one. So my highest one of the palaces for me was the Redux, the next one. So we come back to Phineas after he's had to go back to Ireland, and then he comes back to England. And this is sort of the end of his story. And what I really liked about this one is that there's a crime subplot. And you see kind of the courts and jail. And I really liked how Trollope did that, sort of the procedural stuff. This is why you have the wig on here, probably. And I also like the ending, who he ends up with, one of my favorite characters. So I really like Phineas Redux. And then so Eustace was 1871, and this was published 1873. And so yeah, so of all the Trollopes I read, this is the highest of the year. And one didn't even make the list. What's it called? The Way We Live Now. It was not bad, but it's just not in the top 20. Moving on to my only German work of the top 11 to 20, and this is a bit of a cheat because it's only the first part of this long novel in 3 parts that is published sometimes separately, the 3 different parts, so I'm counting them separately because and so the first part is called Passional, or The Romantic, and it's all about this young man and his family, Passional, and so this is a work by Hermann Broch, published in 1962. So, but it's historical fiction. So it's looking back to the 19th century. And this one I did read it quite a while ago, and I'm sort of thinking a little bit about what I liked about it. Oh, I wrote on here, it reminds me of Tolstoy. Some aspects of it remind me of Tolstoy. The language, the writing is extremely strong, and I love reading German stuff. I should read more of it. But I really enjoyed the prose style, very, very well done. Kind of in a timeless manner. So when it's, historical, if you're reading Fontana, from that time, it's one thing. But if you're reading someone writing in the 20th century about the 19th century, they have to get the tone right. And he really does. It's quite literary. And so it's all about this young fellow. It's another kind of Bildungsroman type situation. And I guess what I would say from what I remember about Pascal, this young fellow, is that he's a bit of a naive person, and he's also trying to sort of make his way in the world, and it is honing in on marriage or falling in love with someone. And also sort of the morals of, he has a mistress on the side, but he wants to marry someone, and sort of the juxtaposition of the mistress from a different class from the person he wants to marry. But he also kind of gets taken in, as I recall, by a sort of slightly sinister fellow whose machinations he cannot really figure out. It's as if it's about, I say it's a Bildungsroman in the sense it's about someone trying to figure out that people are not really upfront, and that he has to learn the sort of machinations of the world and not be so simple and gullible. And the style sometimes is rather, as I recall, one thing I liked about the style is that it's a little bit oblique. Like it's borders on impressionistic, and that in that sense it is kind of modern, but it doesn't have a sort of modern. That's the only sense that you feel it being modern. In the sense of it's not exactly stream of consciousness, but it's going in that direction a little bit. The way it's describing feelings and settings and things like that. Sorry, this is a bit vague. But I do want to try and get to the second one. So what he's done with the Sleepwalkers, from what I gather, is that it's a type. These are types that he's sort of describing. And so the first one is this person from the 19th century, and then he's a romantic. And then the second one's called Esch, or Anarchy. I think this is someone who's a political person and, an anarchist probably. And in the last book of the Sleepwalkers, Huguenot, or Die Sachlichkeit. So Sachlichkeit is like Bauhaus, modernism and practicality and all that. So that's kind of interesting. And the first one, Pascal, the one I read, was 1888. So, and then the second one with the anarchist is 1903, and then we have the last one will be 1918, so the First World War. Coming in at number 12, by far the most modern thing I read, published in 2022, Claire Keegan's short story Foster, which I basically read in London. And it's darling, it's sad, it's about this young Irish girl who gets farmed out to this other family, and it's a very sort of poetic, emotional description of how the parents who take her in really kind of connect her and love her, and they're mourning their own loss. And so, but it's also kind of slightly under the water, written in that kind of poetic way. And the point of view is basically the girl's perspective, but in it still kind of stylized a little bit and poetic. And I think using the young woman's point of view, young girl's point of view, I'm trying to think how old she's like young, I think maybe I don't know exactly how young, is a way for them to make it less obvious, make this, not spell things out. It's more impressionistic. And she senses, and what she does really well, as I recall, is the distinction between someone who's well looked after, like someone, and these people pay attention to her clothing, her health, like in terms of her overall, like how her skin looks and how she's taken care of, and they teach her how to do her hair, they teach her how to there was some other sort of hygiene issues, and it just and not, see, that's one aspect of it. And then they also kind of the emotional sort of nuanced paying attention to someone, and that you kind of get the sense of, this is what love is, this is what is that you pay attention and you care and you protect, and you also kind of hone in on their skills and their talents, and you promote them and you notice them, and you make sure that the child knows that you notice them, like praise for the fact that she's a fast runner and things like that. She's also very helpful in the household. She's a good kid, and so that's part of why she's easy to love, I guess. But you kind of juxtapose with what is going on at home. It's not exactly blatant abuse, but it's neglect. Like things just, there's not this attention paid towards the kids, and there's no praise being offered, and they're perhaps even being manipulated, or just kind of like they're not important, to the point where let's just put her somewhere else, give her to some other people. And that's sort of, I think that's very poignant, very, very sad. So yeah, brilliant little short story by Keegan. I would like to read more of her stuff, for sure. And then last but not least, my number 11 for the year was this chunky little novel here, Little Dorrit, which I also mainly listen to and would sometimes dip into and look at the illustrations. Yeah, so this one is definitely not Bleak House, which was, I think, my favorite read, or second favorite read of last year, maybe. And it's not David Copperfield either. And so right now, I guess, I don't know what other Dickens I've read. So it's like after those two, definitely Little Dorrit just comes in. It's good, and I did enjoy it. It has more gothic threads than the other two, I think, as I recall. I mean, Bleak House could be a little gothic, maybe. I love Bleak House so much, as you know. But so Little Dorrit was very good, and also very long, but not as good as some of the other Dickens I've read. And I do want to, there are other Dickens I want to listen to, or read or listen, both. But yeah, so that's it. That's my top 20 through 11. Thank you all for watching, and very soon, hopefully, probably tomorrow, I'll try and do my top 10, and then got to get back into telling you about what I'm actually reading now, and I will. Thank you all for watching. Bye.